guys, welcome back to Cyberspace Investigations. E3 is the definition of meaningless, and that's been the most apparent for the past two E3s, 2019 and now 2021. E3 skipped 2020 for obvious reasons, but now we've got it back, except it's a virtual event, which means everybody's doing Nintendo Directs, and oh boy, we just found out all companies can't do Nintendo Directs, even Nintendo. Well, 2021 E3 basically just made the point I have said for years more concrete. E3 is becoming meaningless, especially with the Nintendo Direct format becoming more and more prominent, with like Sony doing State of Plays, Nintendo obviously starting the trend with Nintendo Directs, I think even Xbox had them. EA Play has been a separate thing for years now anyway, which means that EA Play isn't even happening in the same week now. It's actually happening later on in June, which is... it's just weird. EA Play was always lumped in with E3, but now it's just a separate thing, and EA never had much to talk about anyway, but this year, oh boy, nobody had anything to talk about, except maybe Nintendo, but they still didn't really have that much to talk about. Well, let's go through all the press conferences and just see what happened. So first up, we have Microsoft, and Microsoft wasn't the first one that happened, but it was the most prominent until Nintendo's happened. As many people say, it won E3. Now, it only won E3 because everyone else was worse than them. None of the press conferences this year were particularly good. Even Nintendo, who usually does a fine job with the conferences, they just didn't have much to announce, which Nintendo has been lacking in anything to announce, but this year was just kind of a lot more nothing than usual. And Microsoft was basically going hard into Game Pass and announced a dongle to connect to the TV. Oh boy, Game Pass is turning into Stadia joy. So this might actually prove another point I said not too long ago on the show, that Halo Infinite might come to PS5 eventually. And that was a very, very well-titled episode to just get those console war fanboys in on the joke. But it actually ended up being... I was basically just trying to say, you know, Xbox Game Pass is clearly taking precedent over actual Nintendo or Microsoft hardware, and with this dongle now being announced, that is a very, very clear indication that has happened. And I think that is the biggest thing you can take away. Now, of course, they did show off some Game Pass stuff. Halo Infinite got a multiplayer reveal, and well, it definitely looks like Halo. Still don't care. The graphics don't look all too much better than the horrible reveal they had earlier, but, well, you know, what are you gonna do? They had like half a year to touch it up, and I don't actually think they touched it up much at all, which, yeah. Not good. Not really that good at all. And I think Microsoft just had more of a variety, which is why people liked it, and it was a lot of small games and a lot of these content creators that are proliferating the Xbox One E3 message are very into Game Pass because it gives them a lot of more content than, say, Sony releasing 2 to 4 massive games every year, which... speaking of, Sony wasn't there, so we can't talk about anything they did, though I guess you could probably count the Horizon Forbidden West State of Play that they did a week or two before, but it's not really E3. It's the closest thing we got to Sony announcements during E3, and Ratchet & Clank came out during it, so most people who are very Sony-aligned were probably busy playing that instead of caring about E3 all too much. But anyway, let's move on to another major conference, the Square Enix one. I didn't watch Square Enix, and they didn't really show off much. They showed a trailer for Avengers, which, God, why are they supporting Avengers? I mean, Avengers had a chance, and they failed. Why are they still supporting it? It must be some contract with Marvel, because, does anybody actually still care about Avengers? There's gotta be at least 2 people out there who do, but I certainly don't, and it made it a tad forgettable. Especially with the fact that there was no info on Final Fantasy VII Remake 2 or Final Fantasy 16, despite 16 supposed to be kind of like Square Enix's next big thing. But they did announce a Guardians of the Galaxy game that looks like crap, so oh, fun. They just, yeah. And how could I forget Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins? A Souls-like game? I mean, I don't know. The demo got corrupted. I couldn't play it. And the trailer just looked weird. It's like they took the designs of the Final Fantasy 15 crew and just kind of swapped it up a bit. Like, the main character is just wearing a shirt. I mean, Noctis wore more than a shirt. He had, like, a jacket. Like, he kind of looked like maybe a little more believable, but these guys are supposed to be the Warriors of Light, because this is based on Final Fantasy 1, and there's already a design for the Warrior of Light, which was already done by Tetsuya Nomura, who was doing the new designs, and at some point the art style change shifted so drastically that you go from this kind of really over-designed but still cool-looking Warrior of Light to some white guy in a white shirt, and it's so weird. And he doesn't look anything like a Final Fantasy protagonist, and then he's just got this other crew that, like one guy just looks like Prompto, again, from Final Fantasy 15, but less interesting. And I don't know what the point is, and, well, I'll just have to play it at some point and go see. But other than that, I don't think Square Enix announced much. No Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker trailer, which, I mean, it's close to release anyway, just a couple months away, so I wouldn't have expected them to announce anything for it or just drop another trailer for the heck of it. But it would have still been nice for them to mention it. But they did announce Final Fantasy Pixel remasters of the first 6 games, which, yay? I mean, all I would personally like is to have the original Final Fantasy VII made into an HD game, and Final Fantasy VII Remake is something completely different from what I actually kind of want. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Final Fantasy VII Remake, I just also would like a better looking Final Fantasy VII to go along with that, and it's weird because they did Final Fantasy VIII Remastered and the Final Fantasy IX that you can buy on the PlayStation Store looks leagues better than the PlayStation 1 original. So I don't know what it is about Final Fantasy VII and just not doing it quite right or something. Whatever they do, they really like to keep the very, very blocky art style. Though there was that one mobile game that was trying to adapt to the entirety of the Final Fantasy VII collection? Is it called the collection? I don't even know what it's called. But all the spin-offs and the movies and everything, they were going to adapt that into a mobile game, and I don't know if that included the original or not. If it did, I'm not sure if I care, because I would prefer a console one that I could play on my console. And the Pixel remasters haven't even been announced to go into anything but mobile and Steam, which seems like a very big waste given the fact that I think most people who like the original 6 Final Fantasies are probably either on Nintendo or PlayStation consoles. So why are we not seeing that? But that's all Square Enix really announced all too much, and it was fine. It's just like their last press conference at 2019's E3. It was fine. There wasn't anything wrong with it, but they didn't announce anything groundbreaking. I would have liked to see Outriders DLC announced, though. That might have been a little interesting, but it might be too early to tell given the fact that the game released just 2 or 3 months before. Though Square Enix did say they consider it their next big franchise, so I would have expected to see something, at least some sort of teaser of a sequel or DLC. I would have expected story DLC, since a sequel would usually take longer to develop, but whatever. I guess we'll just have to wait longer to see what comes next from People Can Fly. But that's all for the Square Enix press conferences, so let's look at Ubisoft's for just a second, since I didn't really watch this at all. And they had Riders Republic. Yeah, I don't know why they keep doing this Ubisoft original tagline beneath their games. It's almost like the branding switch from, or the whatever they want to do where they make free-to-play games now and nothing else, and the Ubisoft original is supposed to be like, whoa, this is a big event, but I don't feel like the games are going to increase in quality at all when they do it. Again, see Far Cry 6 for an example of a game with the Ubisoft original tagline, Riders Republic. And by the way, Riders Republic just looks like Steep, but without the snow. So probably just Steep, but again, I can't get excited for that. Steep was fine. I liked it for a day or two, but I think there was definitely a lot more that really could have happened with it that didn't. And the fact that a lot of maps were locked behind DLC, well, that was a bit of an issue, given the fact that I didn't particularly like the starting maps and I just wanted to see what the others looked like. And also, a couple days before E3, or at their E3 press conference, Ubisoft and Nintendo jointly announced another Mario and Rabbids game. The first one never looked that good as a strategy game, so why'd they make another one? And why'd they make a thing of breeding Lumas with Rabbids? That's very, very, very cursed. God, no, absolutely not. Anyway, moving on from Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle 2, I don't remember the tagline for it. Let's move into the PC gaming show. And I've never watched a PC gaming show before, and God, I never want to again. I don't know if PC gamers actually watch this, or they just watch the highlights, because I saw nothing of value throughout the little bit I watched of this, and it was very cringy. The hosts, they have a lot of hosts, and they were going for a sci-fi theme, which expected you to watch the last PC gaming conference to understand what was happening, which happened 2 years ago, and I never watched because PC gaming isn't my thing. But now, we have a show which has a plot that is connected to that, which is now connected to the next E3's plot, apparently, and nothing got announced. Literally nothing. There were some very, very tiny games, and they asked us to wishlist them 3 years in advance for their release, or at least 1 year. So I don't know if wishlisting is some big thing on PC. I assume it is, given the fact that they were talking about it like it was a normal thing, but on consoles, for all you PC gamers out there, we don't really do that. We just buy the games when they come out or pre-order them, like normal people. What does wishlisting even do? It's very odd concept, since I usually thought the wishlist was maybe a reminder that a game exists, and theoretically, the game would have more trailers and it would come back into the limelight after this E3 presentation. Or maybe not, because some of these games looked so unbelievably indie, like to a level where I almost understand where these PC people are coming from when they almost go hard indie, because that's all PC has. Like, Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, they make games, and they make bigger experiences, and PC just doesn't have that. Now, they do have Microsoft games day and date launch, so I guess that kind of disappoints, or kind of gets rid of the point, but whatever, it's still a thing. And then after that happened the Future Games show, which had some hosts I'm blanking on the names. The guy who voiced Nathan Drake, and then the person who voiced Abby from The Last of Us 2 that I won't play. And the future game show was like the PC games show without the cringe, but also just lamer overall. There was less happening. Some even indie games got announced. And that was it for the future game show and the PC game show. They were so lame. And I don't even know what the future game show is. I've never heard of it before this E3, so I assume it's a new thing, but it also can't be a new thing because it was clearly an established thing that IGN was, like, broadcasting. But everybody was broadcasting as much as they could as Devolver Digital and Capcom had press conferences, and no news came out of them. No, I'm serious. They literally had press conferences and no notoriety, no announcements that I even heard of, and I can't be bothered to watch their press conferences, so sorry. But that's about it. But wait, Nintendo's. Nintendo's was the best by virtue of not being the worst. And what did they announce? Well, Metroid 5. Metroid Fear? God, I always forget the name. It's such a weird name, but let's just call it Metroid 5. It's a brand new 2D Metroid, the first new original one, I believe, since Metroid Fusion, back in 2004, which was titled Metroid 4. And going from that, it looks alright, but it looks like it has some sort of chase sequence mechanic, but I don't know exactly what that means, and the trailers don't give enough info out for me to properly know. But it still looks interesting. I'll be keeping my eye on it, definitely. A new Mario Party got announced. Yeah, Super Mario Party wasn't enough for the Switch, so now we got another one. Didn't watch the trailer, not interested in Mario Party, I'm sorry. And Shin Megami Tensei 5. I didn't realize that Shin Megami Tensei wasn't Persona. Persona is a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei, but I didn't realize that until just today. I thought they were the same thing, and now I realize they're completely separate things. And that's when they said Shin Megami Tensei 5 was going to be Switch exclusive. It looks like an okay RPG, but I don't really care unless it kind of has that Persona feel. Because I really like the feel and look of Persona and the whole thing with that. And I don't know exactly what Shin Megami Tensei is about, but I guess I could just look into it if I really wanted to know, but I don't. I think they had some things for Mario Golf. Yeah, I don't like Mario Golf. Especially this new one. I think the last time Mario Golf was good was whatever one was on the 3DS. I'd rather just play everybody's golf if you're okay with that. And I believe there was Breath of the Wild 2! It finally got revealed as, well, no title, but it's still just the sequel to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. But we did actually get a proper trailer, which made no sense, but it was something at least. There was a sky world, and in relation to where the floating castle is, I don't know, and it's very frustrating, because I would like to understand what new things they're adding to this same world, but I can't seem to figure that out anywhere. So, yeah. It's just, it's not great for that, sorta. It's fine, but, you know, it could have been a lot better, and I think Breath of the Wild definitely had the most pronounced announcements, though I think Metroid 5 was a nice surprise. Definitely something I was not expecting. And a Tekken character got into Smash. I think that was such a safe option for a second to last DLC character that nobody expected it to happen. There was a lot running on Master Chief or Doom Guy being the characters, but On second thought, I originally thought Doomguy would be pretty likely, though on second thought, you know, already got Banjo-Kazooie as a Microsoft representative in there, and Doomguy doesn't exactly fit the Nintendo billing. Now, I'm not sure about Tekken, but they already have Street Fighter characters in there, so other fighting games are absolutely fair game. Castlevania 2, that's certainly not exactly the most kid-friendly franchise, if I remember correctly. And so, of course, that's just... I just assumed maybe, just maybe, but no, we got a Tekken character. I don't care about Tekken, and I definitely don't care about this character. I think Sephiroth was the penultimate surprise DLC character that nobody would guess. But yeah, that's been E3 2021, and I do not think there's more coming. I think there might be some press conferences, or not press conferences, some showings. Nintendo Treehouse happened after the Direct. I don't know what got shown off there. But overall, this was a garbage E3, and I don't know if it's gonna happen again. I think E3 will continue, but more and more companies seem to be pulling out. And I don't know. It's disappointing, but it was gonna happen inevitably after Nintendo realized that everybody was fine with not having a proper E3 press conference, and now that seems to be what everybody's going to. Well, that's all I've got to say on E3 2021, so see you guys next week for another great program.